he swore to save lives. He was trained at the finest medical institutions in the country. He was supposed to be a beacon of hope for those suffering from chronic pain. But behind the white coat and the perfect resume, something far more sinister was hiding. Welcome to Dark Files Evidence. Today, we are unraveling the story of Christopher Duntsch, a man who turned the operating room into a chamber of horrors. How did an entire system fail to stop him in time? Why did fellow doctors have to risk their own careers to halt a monster wielding a scalpel? Brace yourself, because the facts we are about to uncover surpass any horror movie. This is the investigation of a case that changed medicine forever. Before he was known as Dr. Death, Christopher Duntsch sought stardom on the football field. Teammates from those days remember a young man who struggled with basic exercises and simple movements. While other athletes relied on natural talent, Duntsch had only one thing: a pathological obsession with being seen as the best. He couldn't accept failure. He attributed his success to sheer effort and dedication, but in reality, it was a chronic inability to recognize his own limitations. This same trait, this arrogance masking a brutal technical incompetence, is what he carried into the operating room. He didn't just want to be a doctor. He wanted to be a god who controlled life and death, ignoring every rule of science or ethics. When he finally stepped into his role as a neurosurgeon, the promise was one of innovation. But from day one, something was deeply wrong. The coldness with which he approached procedures and the way he treated his colleagues suggested that this wasn't a surgeon focused on his patients, but a man focused solely on himself. He ignored protocols, committed basic errors that a first-year medical student would avoid, and when questioned, he showed no remorse. He simply continued as if his patients' lives were disposable experiments. What was to come was something no hospital in that region was prepared to face. In 2013, Jeff Glidewell walked into the hospital, trusting the system, expecting relief from pain. He became the last man to fall into Duntsch's hands. What was supposed to be a routine procedure spiraled into a 4-day nightmare in the ICU. The surgical errors were so profound, so devastating, that they defied medical logic. For months, Jeff had to endure a grueling, painful rehabilitation process, learning how to function all over again. Look at the photo on his iPad, the image of him finally returning home. It is a powerful reminder of his resilience. But Jeff wasn't just a survivor. He became the catalyst for justice. It was Jeff who, in early 2015, made the call to the judge, finally breaking the silence and forcing the prosecutor's office to stop looking away from the carnage occurring in their own backyard. Then there's the tragic case of Barry Morgulhoff. This wasn't a high-risk experimental surgery. It was supposed to be standard practice. Yet, under the care of Dr. Duntsch, a simple procedure turned into a life-altering disaster. Barry walked into that facility full of plans for his future. He didn't walk out the same way. The damage inflicted during that operation was permanent, causing a slow, agonizing loss of function on the entire left side of his body. Day by day, as weeks turned into months, Barry had to watch his own capabilities slip away. Morgulhoff's story is a cruel, haunting reminder that Duntsch wasn't just an unlucky surgeon. He was a calculated danger. He left behind a trail of destruction, and his indifference to the shattered lives he left in his wake remains the most chilling aspect of this entire tragedy. While the hospital administration remained silent, two surgeons knew they had to act. Dr. Randall Kirby and Dr. Robert Henderson were not just colleagues. They were witnesses to a medical massacre. Kirby, a vascular surgeon, walked into the operating room and was horrified by what he saw Duntsch was not performing surgery. He was mutilating the patient. Together, they formed a united front. They spent hundreds of hours documenting every mistake, every overlooked symptom, and every lie. They were the ones who finally broke through the wall of corporate protection, risking their medical licenses to ensure that no more patients would be destroyed by a monster. Their tenacity turned the tide of this entire investigation. Finally, the truth reached the courtroom. The image you see now is Duntsch during his deposition, the face of a man who, even when confronted with the absolute destruction of his patients' lives, remained coldly detached. But the verdict was clear. The trial exposed not just the actions of one man, but the systemic negligence of the hospitals that enabled him. Christopher Duntsch was sentenced to life in prison. But for Jeff, Barry, and countless others, the life they knew was already gone. This case forced a paradigm shift in how hospitals monitor their surgeons across the entire nation. It remains a grim, vital lesson. Trust is earned, but verification is mandatory. If you found this investigation revealing, subscribe to Dark Files Evidence. The conviction of Christopher Duntsch wasn't just a win for the victims. It was a wake-up call for the entire American healthcare system. For decades, hospitals relied on the good faith of their surgeons, assuming that anyone with a license was competent. Duntsch exposed how easy it was for a dangerous predator to hop from one hospital to another, leaving a trail of bodies behind. Because of this case, laws were changed. Hospitals are now required to be more transparent, and peer review processes have become significantly more rigorous. But as we reflect on these changes, we have to ask ourselves, how many doctor deaths are still out there, hidden behind closed doors and bureaucratic silence? The investigation into his actions proved that silence is in fact an accomplice. Duntsch is behind bars, but for the survivors, the battle continues. They live with the physical pain and the emotional trauma every single day. This documentary is dedicated to their bravery, to those who refuse to let their stories be swept under the rug. At Dark Files Evidence, we believe that sunlight is the best disinfectant. By bringing these stories to light, we ensure that the victims are not just statistics, but people whose lives were forever altered. Thank you for standing with us on this journey through the dark. Do not forget to subscribe and hit the bell notification, because in our next episode, we will go deeper into the files that others are afraid to open.